What's up guys, and welcome back to my model train reviews. And this time we're going to be taking a look at a very special locomotive. As you may notice, it is part of the National Collection here. Let me get a box here. You may notice it's from the National Railway Museum, and it is Duchess of Hamilton. Now you may remember that sneak peek. Look at my last review of my model of Green Arrow from Barkerman. Well, that was like a sneak peek, like a teaser or something. Now, enough about that, let's get on with the review. As you can see here, it's a Princess Coronation class Pacific, built for the LMS, which stands for London, Midland and Scottish Railway. And its number is 6229. You may notice it's in its streamlined form here, because this model was basically developed for the 70th anniversary of the Coronation Scot, which this engine was built in 1938. The same year as Mallard, and the same year when Mallard broke its world record in 1938. Well, that was in July, really. Let's take a look at the other side of the box. You can see here, its product code is R2689, LMS 462 Coronation class locomotive, 6229 Duchess of Hamilton, and it is DCC ready, which means that you can install like a fitted DCC chip from the tender. We'll get onto that later. And that's a picture of the engine when it was in service. It's a shame it's all grey or something. In case you're wondering why it's grey, well, that's how it's meant to be. Because, you know, back in Steam days, there were no colour pictures. Everything was black and white. And that was done on an old-fashioned camera. Really, let me just have a quick read of this. Princess Coronation, Duchess of Hamilton, designed by William Stanier, was built in July 1937. Even though it's meant to say... It was meant to say 1938, but that doesn't matter. A crew by the London, Midland and Scottish Railway. Reserved as the most powerful steam locomotives ever to run in Britain, the Princess Coronation class was a stunning representation of Art Deco opulence and of the modern machinery of its age. The once streamlined Duchess of Hamilton was unrecognisable upon withdrawal in February 1964, after having its livery modified during wartime Britain and the streamlined encasing removed in 1947. However, preservation began as a static exhibit at Butlands in Minehead, which is basically on the West Somerset Railway, on the north end of it, really, until its return to mainland steam in 1980, and later at the National Railway Museum in York. Today, Duchess of Hamilton has been restored to its original streamlined design at the Birmingham Railway Museum at Tyseley. To celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Coronation Scot service for which it was originally introduced. And the next paragraph here says, experience the incredible story of the train as you've never seen or heard it before. Get close up to the A4 Mallard, the fastest steam locomotive in the world, marvel at Stephenson's rocket, Eurostar and the super sleek bullet train, plus much, much more. Embark on a journey of discovery at the National Railway Museum in York. Now, if you wonder why they were taking off the streamlined casing, you may notice it's very different from what you've seen on the A4s. Well, during the 40s, they removed the streamlining. Well, because of that, it was very hard to maintain the locomotive, because they can't get up to the boilers and access parts here. But did they remove them during the 40s? Which they did the same with the A4s, really. But they removed the A4s had their valances removed during World War II, and they were never reinstated in service. But the A4s were streamlined throughout their entire working careers, and some of the Princess Coronations were built without their streamlined forms. But let me get that box out of the way, and better still, I'll put it there so we can get onto the actual model. Alright, here's Duchess of Hamilton herself. Now, doesn't she look stunning in this streamlined form? Whereas I remember when I saw her at the NRM, she was in a non-streamlined form as she was in the 50s and 1960s. But when she returned in 2009, that was the first time I've ever seen her in a streamlined form. Now, let's start off with the locomotive first. Let me just get that tripod back up. Yeah, and let me zoom out here. Let's separate the engine from its tender. I better do just like what they did with what other people do when they review their trains, like Mega Train Lover, for instance. Now, doesn't she look stunning in this livery? It's very unique the way they designed it for the West Coast main line. They operate services from Euston to Glasgow, but the streamlined forms were like a downside on the coronations, like I already mentioned, because it was very hard to maintain those. But the one thing that makes them unique is those gold stripes on here, which looks very attractive. And if we look on here, the number plate here, it says, I don't know how well you can see it. It says 6229, whereas in BR days it was numbered 46229, when it was in its non-streamlined form. And like we see on Duchess of Sutherland today, and the other example, City of Birmingham. I don't know how many of them were built, but I think there were 38 of them, for example. But today, Duchess of Hamilton here is one of 3 examples of the class to be preserved. Well, one is certified for mainline running, which is Duchess of Sutherland, and this engine and the City of Birmingham are static exhibits in museums. Well, the City of Birmingham is at like the Thinktank Museum, Birmingham somewhere, whilst Duchess of Hamilton here can be seen at the National Railway Museum in York. Now, if we go onto the top of the locomotive here, you can see the handrails here, which is very important for the crew, for their safety. And there's a chimney here, which, if you take a look at the real one at the NRM in York, you can see it has a double chimney here. And if we go on the back here, there's some safety valves, and there's a whistle, or as the LMS like to call it, a hooter, which you remember hearing it on the Black 5, so they have like a deep noise, like on Princess Elizabeth, for instance. And let's take a look at the cab first. You can see the cab is not very well painted, but it is quite good in detail. And let's move on to the wheels, for instance. You can guess it's a 462 Pacific, which means there's like 4 main wheels at the front which support the locomotive and guide her around corners, 6 driving wheels in the middle, and 2 wheels at the back which support the rear of the engine. And the nameplate is very iconic. That is what I often see her at the National Railway Museum. And I don't know how well you can see it on here. It should focus in any minute. Will it help if I put it back a little bit? Mind you, if you look on the workers' plate here, it says LMS Crew in 1938, which again is the same year that Mallard was built. I mean, the A4s and the Princess Coronations were like rivals from each of the 4 railway companies. I mean, they were operated by the LNER and the LMS, which they compete against routes up to Scotland. Whereas, if we look at the front here, it's very awesome here. Let's see here. There's a handle to open up the front of the streamlined casing. Whereas if you open it up, it'll act like it'll open up like a butterfly's wings. If you watch Mega Train Lover's review of Duchess of Hamilton, you might probably know that. And there's some lamp irons here, and it has sprung buffers. Whereas I like how those gold stripes meet at the front, like on the real one. Whereas if you look at them when they meet, they kind of like resemble like the Yorkshire Tyne Tees logo. I mean, really, doesn't that look like the Yorkshire Tyne Tees logos to you? I mean, just by a little bit with the multiple stripes. Whereas if we get a box of the real one when it was in service, that black and white picture we saw earlier. I mean, that's the real one. There's a handle to open up the front of the streamlined casing. Whereas unlike the A4s, where they have a cottonmouth door and a crank where you can open and close, but this one's very different. But anyway, this engine visited. It doesn't say it on the box. It really doesn't. But as well as you know, this one, Duchess of Hamilton, actually went over to the USA in the late 30s, whereas before that it was masquerading as number 6220, Coronation, which was the first member of the class. So what they did is they replaced her nameplate with Coronation and renamed her 6220, whereas according to Mega Train Lover, he said that they repainted her in Coronation's livery. whereas it was basically blue with like silver stripes, like the gold ones here. And then they took this engine over to the USA. Whereas, well, she was going to return to Britain after that, but because of World War II, she didn't return to the UK until like 1942. And then this engine, of course, was withdrawn in 1964 and was preserved as a static exhibit at Butlands in Minehead, which is on the north end of the West Somerset Railway, and was restored to working order in 1980. But currently she is on static display at York, whereas if you remember in 2012 she was moved up to Shildon for the winter season, but she's now back in York, where she came back about a year ago in 2014, which was after that. Whereas if we look on the other side of the engine, let me turn it around a bit. Yeah, well, the other side is exactly the same, but you may notice there's a vacuum pipe, which I forgot to mention. And also I forgot to mention this model comes with like a spare bogey part, which I haven't got out at the moment, but well, I'm not going to fuss around with that. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can see the workers' plate enough. I know it says crew on it in 1938, whereas if you go to the National Railway Museum and see the real Duchess of Hamilton, you can probably find a workers' plate on where the middle driving wheel is, and a nameplate. But let's get the locomotive to one side here, and focus on the tender. Now, I have no words to describe the tender, really. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Whereas if I remember the real Duchess of Hamilton, when in a non-streamlined form, she didn't have those things or whatever they are in the tender. Which the tender carries like coal here, and this part of the tender carries water. Whereas if you look like on the front here, this is where the fireman shovels coal from the tender into the firebox, which helps keep the engine running, although they mainly run on coal and water. If we look on the bogey part, the tender doesn't have the good power as a steam engine, but I don't know about tenders really. But there's that big coupling which was seen on older Hornby models, that vacuum pipe over here. Again, sprung buffers, and let's see the other side here. It's exactly the same, where you see the gold stripes on they go around and they meet the engine. And if you look on here, it says LMS, which again, for those of you with short-term memory issues, you know that it is pronounced as, it stands for London, Midland and Scottish Railway, which they operated routes from London Euston to Glasgow Central, which is up in Scotland. Whereas the LNER operated from London King's Cross up to York and up to Edinburgh. Which I don't think these engines have been on the East Coast Territory before in the steam days. Put in the comment section below if you've already seen pictures of one leaving King's Cross. There's a picture. Really, there is like a picture of one leaving King's Cross, which I don't know yet. You might remember seeing streamlined trains review of like Princess Alexandra, I think, which comes from that Coronation Scot train pack. But in the meantime, let's finish this off by admiring the engine. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not doing those running in video parts, then I decided not to do them because I've not got the tracks to them. Although the tracks I used in my last videos were from my Eurostar train set that I had years ago. But I guess at some point I might get those expansion tracks that's from like a gadget shop or somewhere, or a model shop somewhere. Just excuse me when I sort this out. Okay, let's finish this off by admiring the engine. Here we go. Look at that, doesn't she look stunning? Not as stunning as the A4s though. Like I've already mentioned, the streamlining on the Princess Coronation was basically like a downturn in the 40s because it put the crew in a difficult position to maintain the engine, and that's the reason they took it off. And this engine was restored in this condition at Tyseley, It took about 4 years to restore her into this condition. She started in 2000. She left the museum in 2005, and she returned in 2009 in this condition for the first time since 1938. I mean, she is a stunning engine. Oh, well, I can't wait. Maybe if the NRM put enough funds to restore her to working order, we could probably see her out on the main line, probably by the end of the decade. I mean, I would love to see this magnificent beast on the main line in this form. But in the meantime, I'll see you next time in my next review. Bye.